Welcome to Hackstock, welcome to Sci Fi London, welcome to the Trampery, welcome to this conversation. We're just getting going, we're just warming this place up, so come and have a seat. You don't have to say anything, but you'll be more part of it if you come and sit down. Come and have a seat, come and get involved. Let's get this road on the show, as I like to say for some reason, I'm not sure why. So this is Talkaoke. It's very simple. It's just people talking around the glowing table. One of our panels is not illuminated because we're trying out this new lampshade projector. Yeah. So anyway, my name's Mikey. Let me turn this one up. Hello. Whoa. And let's get some names around the table. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Yiping.
I'm going to turn you up a little bit. Go on, let me try that again.
Hi, I'm Yiping.
Yiping.
Yes.
And
Rowan.
Lex.
Said.
Whoa, I'm going to just adjust levels a little bit. Whoa. And
James.
And whoa, what's going on? Okay, and
Tom.
Oh, no, it's too quiet now.
Tom.
I mean, what's going on? Oh, I see what's going on. Hello. It's all coming through. I didn't do a sound check before starting, which is a little bit unprofessional. So,
This is the power of my name.
yeah, and
Zander.
Sander.
Yeah.
Whatever. You're not fussed. Yeah, okay. I just need to actually just adjust all my knobs to get them all at the right level. Whoa. And turn this one a little bit down and turn that one a bit down. And we're good to go. Right, so the whole point of Talkaoke is it's just up to you to decide what you want to talk about. We're all here. We're at Hackstock. We're at Sci Fi London. We're at the Trampery. We're at Talkaoke. But what we're going to use this...
I think we're going to kick it off with Tom's new experience. I think you were part of the Trampery Fish Island. And so one of the things is that what we wanted to do with this weekend was kind of put it out there, that not to be such an insular kind of community and kind of open it up for anybody that's in immersive arts or if you want to call it VR or holograms to kind of come and be part of this. And that's why this space was kind of spot on. And so we kind of put out an email and you wanted to come along so we could then just test. The same with meeting yourself. It's always, it's kind of like trying to connect with the more alternative kind of the community and then also time run. So bringing in like other experiences.
What is time run?
So time run's like an adventure kind of punch drunk style kind of tech based adventure game. Is that kind of spot on? Which is sci-fi as well, and it's kind of pretty underground. It's not many people it's just people are starting to hear about it, but it's kind of it is immersive as well. Okay. And you could integrate all of these things that we're all doing into those kind of experiences.
So what I'm getting from you, James, is you want to have a kind of all-encompassing discussion about immersive arts, whatever anyone thinks their immersive arts are.
Exactly. Rather than being a VR bubble, let's just think.
So it's not just about virtual reality, it's about being immersed in something. It could be...
like Talkaoke or...
Some might say this is an immersive experience. But, okay, so you mentioned Tom, so maybe you should say a little bit about what you believe you're here to talk about.
Well, I'm here to talk about our project, which is called Amplify VR.
Yes.
The idea is it's a platform for musicians to create new musical experiences in virtual reality.
Right.
So the idea is it's somewhere between the original idea was kind of around a gig. So what would be the future of gigs in virtual reality? So at the moment people are doing 360 videos. Sticking. You can be on stage with Paul McCartney. That's great. But all you're doing is really recreating something that already exists. It's going to be. But we're interested in thinking, well, what is the future really of this, and why stick to a stage where you can have a gig in space or you can have a gig underwater, and what does that mean in terms of as
the
an
issue
artist?
with space is that sound doesn't travel through space.
Well, but we're not bound by physical.
Okay, so let's throw physics out the window.
Let's take physics out the window for sure. Well, I mean, obviously that's an interesting point because actually, when you go into virtuality, people have expectations about how things behave. Especially now, because most people haven't tried virtuality, so they expect to stand on the ground and they expect to have a body, and they expect there to be gravity and sound. But obviously, the more time people spend in a space, the more they're going to get used to things not being the same as life. And that's a really interesting part of
Okay, there's so many things there in just those few sentences that I could pick up on, but it's not up to me. Does anyone want to respond, ask questions a bit more about this?
I was just say also about I'm working with Xander and Cedric, so I should just say that.
Okay, so you're all part of the same team.
Yeah.
Just declaring your shared interest, yeah.
I'm definitely curious about this application because I go to a lot of gigs and I have a lot of frustrations about gigs because they're just normally not run very well.
Have you been to a virtual reality gig?
Well, no, that's the thing. I sort of have. I haven't been to something completely immersive. I've been to this sort of 360 dome cinema where you can be inside an orchestra, like a 200-piece orchestra.
Yeah.
And you can kind of look around and, over here's the string section, over here's the wood section. And that was kind of interesting. But it wasn't what I kind of wanted from like a rock gig experience where there's invariably just like 20 people with giant hats.
So you wanted to see somebody
obscuring your view.
The back of somebody's neck sort of sweating,
well, no, I want
a North Face jacket or something like that.
No, I kind of want everyone can be at the front if it's a virtual gig. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to get out of it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but I want to know what could be more than that, because like you said, it's not just about replicating the experience. I want to know what could be different from the live experience.
Okay, so what could you add? We've got a new face at the table. I should say this is Rowan, Eping. What's your name?
Elam.
And Xander, Tom, James, Cedric, and Lex, of course. Yes, and what was it again?
Elam.
Elam. I actually knew that, but anyway. So what could you add to me, I'm already thinking like I would be in some sort of virtual mosh pit, but could you do that with virtual reality? What could you add to the experience is really the question to enhance.
So one of the things that we did with taking another view with Hack the Planet, the thing we created was to actually do VR as part of the gig.
Yeah.
So the Planet was a social shared experience where it was a bit like taking a mild cyberdelic drug.
Yeah.
And then you got given a cardboard, you made the cardboard, you put it on, and then the band played live, and then you projected the visuals around. So that's, I think, virtual reality or any kind of immersive thing can be integrated in many different ways.
Right. So there's no reason why you couldn't be at the gig and have the VR experience at the gig.
And I think that's the thing, or motion mapping of visuals, or another kind of sensory, like the sub-pack vests over there. So actually, you could be having like a virtual rave gig with all of the immersiveness of the sub bass, feeling it pretty much how people would feel it at a gig.
Okay.
I mean, on that topic, there's the thing that I did over there in the corner. Basically, it's like a psychedelic kind of healing space, but it's basically the way I can envisage.
Come on, use the microphone.
I can envisage.
I know we could all just have a conversation without, because but please just use the microphone. Thank you. Yeah.
Pretend there's loads of people.
Yeah.
Basically, I can foresee my thing basically being on a dance floor in a festival. So people, basically, because it is psychedelic and it works very well with psychedelic accessories or whatever. And so I like the idea of people being on a dance floor and then just being able to key into a completely different reality, put on a headset, and suddenly they're like wherever you want them to be, flying through space and time, having the most psychedelic experience of their life. You take it off, and then suddenly they're like back again. And so using it as basically as a digital drug to kind of put people into different states of mind.
So digital psychedelia, cyberdelia, you might call it. Yeah.
Lex. I can see this, I can picture it. It's like you've got silent disco, but you can put them in like those bubble suits so that they can just bounce around with their VRs on and be like, the team. I can see that. I'd do that definitely.
Okay, I can see. Is this what entertainment of the future is going to be like at a festival? You're just going to get a massive kind of pile of people in inflatable bubbles with all this gear on, just bouncing around.
That's how this event came from. That we did one recently at Lights of Soho, and just the thing I've got is called Sci Fi, and that's a combination of psychedelia, science fiction, and science fact. But then also working with people like Carl and Spheres, social good. Trying to put you in different situations of feeling other people's emotions. But the key is that the world we live now is, with like the panel we had yesterday, is pretty much science fact in a lot of things. And so if you look back at the things we were showing yesterday on the TV, some of the 90s VR, what they were talking about was actually a lot more switched on than some of the people are talking now in regards to the responsibilities or actually what they're doing. And so that's why we wanted to do this as well, was connect with the more cooler kind of experiences that are exploring how we feel, or taking us into doing cyberdelic drugs, and you know, rather than trying to create a car experience which you can go and drive a car. You know, so.
Okay, so go further than the real, in a way. I mean, it's interesting. The other thing I want to bring out of that, because it's something that we were talking about a lot yesterday, all day in fact, is this thing about communicating emotions as well. Like communicating empathy was something that was really, really big yesterday in the conversation. It came up again and again and again.
Something on that, I think exactly that note. It's not a very articulated thought, but I find it kind of ironic that a lot of people say that VR is a really insular experience, but actually something like this feels more like it's this idea of the gig or the rave sounds like it's simultaneously personalised, but also more shared than an otherwise festival or gig experience would be, because you can communicate with someone at a different part of the world, but still have that kind of intimate rave experience with them. But I think a lot of people outside of this world don't seem to get that. They see someone with the goggles over there and just think, oh, well, it's all by himself. But actually, there might be something really big going on.
This person. Are you all by yourself over there? Could that be like a social experience? Is basically what we're saying, because like.
I was just enjoying a nice little trip around the solar system.
Oh, sorry. But were you on your own around the solar? Is it lonely out there in the solar system?
Well, yes, but I've got Phobos and Deimos and Jupiter and Saturn and
okay,
Sun to keep
so you've got all the planets to keep you company.
So on that thing is the Timothy Leary, who's was kind of one of the taglines of this. Originally, you know, he said, tune in, drop out, open your mind through cyberdelics, or actually challenging convention or challenging the rules. And then later on, after he'd been in prison, and whether he was a CIA infiltrator or whatever, he actually got into technology and said to tune in, plug in, and he was one of the first people to kind of do VR with the Talking Heads guy. And I think he did Necromancer, and he was creating all this stuff, and he literally he was a guy that kind of predicted meme culture. And it's the thing we did within the app we created was called One Brain, and One Brain was taking the sounds of the universe that were sampled and then talking about finding enlightenment through connection. And so for me, the thing of putting a headset on when we did it socially and we broke the world record at Comic-Con, it was a socially shared experience where everybody did it at the same time for just 5 minutes, and then everybody had been part of something as an immersive experience.
Going back to what you were saying about it being a social experience, when we designed that initially, we were only really thinking about it in a kind of a self-oriented kind of way, like your personal experience. But we discovered that when we were sharing this, because it kind of makes you move your body and takes you out of your reality, everyone who was queuing to do it basically wound up being a really, really social experience, because everyone would be watching their family member or their girlfriend or whatever losing themselves in this completely different reality, and they'd all be like there with their phones recording them, like tweeting pictures of like their family being stupid, and it became actually a very socially involving experience, because people let down their guard, and then you can see like under the surface which they're generally projecting, because you stop projecting like in the same way when you're in a virtual reality, because you aren't interfacing with this reality anymore.
So in a way, rather than sort of like wrapping you up in technology, it's actually exposing a part of yourself, which is not, like almost a kind of underbelly of your personality.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, where do people want to take this? Do we want to talk about this idea, this kind of like Timothy Leary idea of one brain? Do we want to talk about like some of the technology? It's kind of up to you. My job in the middle is simply to spin around. Where do people want to go with this? Any thoughts, Yiping? What do you want to hear about?
Actually, I didn't know there would be a talk.
Yeah. Why did you come here today? What were you interested in?
Because I'm an architect, and we've been using VR quite frequently recently, because we're going for planning for the building in the city of London. Right. And the site is like super sensitive. It's in a historical heritage area. Right. And to really impress the general public and the planning department, so we imported our building into Unreal, so that the general public and the planners can really like take a virtual tour of the building and can show the amazing public realm, the terraces and all these public places on the ground floor we designed. Just rather than like looking at the technical drawings or the models, usually people who haven't been trained, they won't be able to understand what the environment or the atmosphere really will be like in the future. But that way it just makes our project infinitely more convincing and attractive.
Do you think you could use music and a little bit of psychedelics
you can do
make it more interesting?
all of these things, and there can be weather changing in VR, for example. There's rain and you walk into the building and there's a winter garden. It's a series of amazing experience. And so we've been using these technologies in architecture design, and I really think it's going to be the future. And also in the future, we might not need so many physical constructions. Let's say as an architect, I can just design virtual buildings for VR.
You're saying it's a sensitive project, and this also touches on the idea of emotions. Like, do you think you could somehow communicate that sensitivity of a space that's a contested space? Could that actually be communicated as well as, the actual physical reality, like the sort of emotional reality of being in a space maybe that was one thing and you want it to be another thing, and you're actually communicating some kind of emotion?
Because we usually, traditionally how we study architecture, we make like models, like 1 to 100 or even 1 to 1,000 models, and put the model in a city and see like if there's a contrast in materiality, how does the scale reflect the historical blocks or all these kind of things. But if you're not trained with the mind to read all these architectural languages, you won't be able to understand what it will really be like when you walk on the street. You won't be able to understand like the surprise between the contrast of new and old materials and all these things. But with VR, it's just so much more real, and it becomes a real experience. And so everybody will be able to understand architecture better. And also in the future.
What about like fictional architectures? Like, I'm saying we can bring it over to.
I've actually done a few different projects. A couple of projects we did before, we've been quite involved in actually modelling real spaces again, but reusing them. So we did a project called Play Sage Gateshead. Sage Gateshead is a big music venue up in the north. And we modelled a 3D version of that and let people actually play the building and create notes and music.
What do you mean play the building?
Well, you could go up to, so basically recorded the sounds about the walls made when you hit it, or the sort of the railings made, and you could go around and you could kind of knock them and create your own sort of music experience. And then we did a bunch of work, which is a piece called Veil, where we created an art installation in virtuality, but it can only be experienced in the gallery. So again, we modelled a space around the installation, and you put it on, and then something's changed, and it's actually the object on the plinth has changed. It's a cardboard house, but when you start to look inside the cardboard house, you see there's an interior, and then when you peer inside, and then you're sucked inside the house. It's something that normally you wouldn't normally be able to do. And what we found is, what I found really fascinating about VR, it's not so much actually the big, huge scale. It's very easy to go, right, wow, we can be inside there like...
like he's going around the solar system.
Yeah, the solar system, which is great. But actually one of the most interesting, tangible experiences when you're kind of about this distance from an object, and you see this, if you get a real sense of the solidity of an object, and that's the part of VR that absolutely fascinates me.
Introduce a bit more myopia really into VR. So everyone's like a bit like me when I take my glasses off. I'm like
Really good app that really used that, and so in this app, it was on, you had a keyboard and the Oculus on you. And you had to put your 2 hands, and you need to hold like 2 letters. And as soon as you took your hands off the letters, you lost the game. And so you'd be in the world, and you'd have virtual arms that would also be on a keyboard. So you would kind of like feel that those were your arms. And the game was really smart because, you sort of like, these are my arms now, and then they would like attack your arms. So they would have. And the best ones is they have like a little spider that sort of crawls up your arm. And as soon as you move your arm, you lose the game. And so you have to
I would lose that instantly. I hate that kind of stuff.
And you have bees going around your face and stuff. And they sort of...
Sounds like my worst nightmare.
they realize your worst fears.
Yeah. A bit like Room 101. We were talking about George Orwell yesterday. That kind of Room 101 idea.
It's just, it's really good sense of like your body being like taken over almost.
Scary stuff.
We're going back to the thing of talking about how we make stuff now. Is like if you look at the kids who have grown up with Minecraft and things like that, their minds have already in virtual worlds, and so they're already using kids now to help design new architecture spaces. So the tools that you're talking about,
I guess it's cheaper as well to use kids.
And also like what we talked about yesterday. I mean, most young people are never going to be able to afford a space in London. So, one of the things Timothy Leary was into was that actually we will live in virtual spaces, which people are doing anyway. I mean, the world is virtuality anyway. That it's been created for us. So, I think as long as the lights don't go out, it's emotionally it's going to evolve, and the kids are the ones that will get it even more so.
I mean, could you see yourself as an architect of buildings that are never actually made in the real world, but actually somebody's virtual living room, but that actually somebody lives in a virtual sense?
Definitely. In the future, I think we don't really need so many physical constructions anymore. Also, as an architect, I constantly feel like not really depressed, but there are so many practical issues that facing every day.
Boring stuff.
All this boring stuff and money-making stuff. And in the end, the architecture, like most of the time, just a compromise of all these practical issues and not really the aesthetics or the atmosphere you really want to achieve. But with virtual reality, you can really do something like absolutely amazing, mind-blowing, regardless, like you don't have to care so much about if the building is going to fall down or not. You don't really care about insulation and all your budget.
There's no health and safety constraints.
In the future, like lots of architecture can only exist in VR, maybe.
One of the biggest companies of the 21st century built its business on sort of cultivating these social experiences. And so I'm talking about Facebook, right? One of the biggest companies. And they invested $2 billion to buy Oculus because Mark Zuckerberg, if you see his interviews, he's a huge believer in VR because he thinks, Facebook is an all right way to share your experiences. But he is so convinced that VR is the ultimate way to share your experiences. And so if people are already spending 2 hours a day on Facebook, they're already living in this virtual world that you're talking about.
But it's very text-based in a way. It's text and maybe the
it's
odd
text,
photo.
photos, visual base.
Yeah.
The next step is really actually hanging out with your friends in these gigs. Anyone here who's played like multiplayer games when you're playing with your friends is so much fun.
Yeah.
And that's what people enjoy about Facebook because you get to be with your friends again. And I think VR, you'll have people designing these great buildings and this great world, and we will live there. Like eventually, if you ever read the book Ready Player One, it's basically imagining the world.
Yeah, we heard about this yesterday.
Like that. So you're already the world has gone to shit. There's been like the environment sucks. It's like global warming has taken over, and everyone just lives in VR.
Right.
I definitely for anyone here, check that book out. It's really good.
Definitely, because I think it was mentioned yesterday, and apparently all the employees of Facebook got a copy as a present, as a gift from Mark Zuckerberg.
So this is the question, isn't it? So the question, I think Brian Eno, and he did, one of his best mates is the Greek finance minister.
Yanis Varoufakis.
And they're both really good mates, and they did a really cool Guardian interview a couple of months ago.
They could share
hairstylists, exactly. And they basically, they asked the question, are we in Star Trek or are we in the Matrix? And so personally, I believe we're closer to the Matrix, than we are Star Trek. But
what do you mean by that?
Well, in regards to dystopia, how we control. So within, for example, Facebook, they know pretty much, or also with our Oyster cards, and actually we're in.
So you think, in a way, it's about the informational flow. They know much more about us than we know about their operations.
That as well, but then also, if you look at Star Trek, it was about bringing together all the races to then go and find a universe, but not change anything, but kind of look after the universe as
more of an
humanity.
Anthropological kind of approach.
Yeah, and also that you could have instant food, and that you could beam, but in the Matrix you're kind of plugged in, and it's like it's a data kind of world, a dystopian. So. Yeah, and so the thing, but actually you look at it, and and that's when it gets even more. That's why those guys that were here yesterday, can articulate it better. The sci-fi writers and the guy who's a futurist.
The clever people that were here yesterday.
Yeah, that's it. But so for me, I think we're close.
Okay, well, I'm going to put. What do people think? What do you think? Are we more in the Matrix or more in a kind of Star Trek kind of future? Are we being manipulated by giant data centers, or are we in a post-scarcity world where you can just go down to Sainsbury's and put it on your contactless card? What do you think, Matrix or Star Trek?
Matrix.
You think Matrix?
Matrix, I think, yeah.
Okay, we're going to go round on this one.
I think it's a mixture of both. Yeah. I'm total pragmatist,
Yeah.
Yeah, Matrix. We're not post-scarcity at all.
Okay.
Still deciding, I guess.
Okay.
I don't really know what is Matrix or what.
Have you seen the film The Matrix? We've got the one with Keanu Reeves, where he's the one. I'm the one. That one. Have you seen it?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
It's impressive to have not seen The Matrix in the 21st century. I'm a techno-optimist, so I definitely see us heading towards an Ian M. Banks kind of post-scarcity society one day.
Yeah.
It's just that. It just
what
takes
do you
those
mean by Ian M. Banks post?
Oh, so Ian M. Banks created a universe called The Culture, and there were no needs anymore because technology could cater for everything. And I just see, I feel like there needs to be a few changes politically, economically, and technologically, and then suddenly we'd be on that trajectory. So I got a bus here today, and I missed the first bus by about a second, literally. The doors closed, and I knocked on the doors, and the guy just went, waited there because he was at a red light. For about a minute and a half. Yeah, and I was like knocking on this thing, and he was just looking at me as if I wasn't a human being.
Yeah.
And then the light changed to green, and he drove off. And I thought, I can't wait for you to be a robot. I just can't wait for them to automate.
What the difference?
The difference would be that was a human agent who could easily open the doors. If it was a robot, it would be programmed to make a decision, and I wouldn't have the frustration of questioning it. It wouldn't have been an emotional decision that this guy was making. It would just be a computer program.
So that was what was messing you.
That was what was annoying me.
But then I suppose whether or not it's a human or a robot, there's still rules that he has to stick to. So the rule is that he can't open the door unless it's at a bus stop. So I suppose it will be even worse.
Have you ever got to a bus and knocked on the door and they've opened the door?
You know what I've learned many years ago to never do that. Never run for a bus or anything. Yeah, because bus drivers are so.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
The thing.
However, bus drivers basically, I think it will be worse with a robot because at least with humans, you might get that really nice person that will open the door, but a robot, they're just going to stick to the rules. Are they going to be programmed to be able to, look at you and say, oh, should I open it? Can they make decisions like that?
I mean, what about if a robot could make decisions? Wouldn't you just be stuck in the same trap?
Exactly. Well, just on the point about driverless stuff, this is, as I understand it, but apparently the #1 job in the States is truck driver. If by number of people, then it's health worker. In 5 years, those trucks all those jobs will be gone, because if you can guarantee your freight over an amount of time with not paying sick pay, and that's what's going to happen. So the biggest workforce in the States in 5 years. So your bus driver's right, but my issue is what's he going to do? And I extend to the Matrix, the dystopia, but yeah, Matrix definitely, because every single movement is becoming a data point, whether it's Internet of Things, whether it's Wi-Fi data and stuff. So you could close your eyes and see us all emitting data. What you do with it, how you work it out, that's for the future. That's
so
for
very
what
much
matters.
Matrix, very much
Easily.
not Star Trek.
No, I mean, but what is beautiful though is when that kind of FaceTime all kicked off, you knew someone's on the South Pole chatting in real time with their kid or something. Like that was that Star Trek world. So yeah, gone. It's gone. It's
over. It's over. It's all owned and controlled, and all those. There's just a whole bunch of unemployed bus drivers, basically.
So talk about the robots. So we've actually, with Harold, who played yesterday, who did the first kind of bedroom synth album, Synthesis, we've actually created an experience for this weekend called Rise of the Robots.
Yeah.
And we've made it in about a week, and we're going to be doing it in there, a hack. And what we've got is some mind control technology, which is funded by Ravensbourne, and we're going to be using that and the Subpack Vest to kind of hack this app to see if we can make it so that you can control to stop being a robot. So that thing that we're talking about, so in it you're a robot and you're like dystopically unhappy, everything says obey, and in it we're going to see if we can use this mind tech to see if we can change how the robot reacts in VR and changes how it feels.
Okay, so robots with feeling. Once more, but with feeling.
Right, yeah, so rise of the bots.
Yeah. Related to that and what you're saying about Ian Banks, I think he's come up with some really clever ideas about what the future and technology will make happen. One of those being about a race that was very religious and became technologically advanced enough that they could create heaven and hell as real physical things. So when people die, they transfer their souls into these big data centers where they then live, depending on how they've lived. Either they're being tortured forever, over and over and over again, or they become this thing. And then there's an interesting story about sort of how terrorists are trying to subvert the hell, and someone goes into hell to try and get his wife out and stuff. But I think it's really interesting how we can create, physically manifest our religious ideas through virtual reality. And
that's one of the scariest ideas I've heard in my entire life, I have to say.
And another interesting idea he had was that, so basically the society is run by these ultimately powerful machine brains, computers that have, put humans to absolute shame in how their complexity. And so they, when they're trying to figure out what's going to happen in the future, they're modeling the current reality. So they'll make a computer simulation of that solar system, for example, to try and figure out what's going to happen politically on this planet that's still developing or whatever. But then the only way to get the simulation accurate enough for them to be able to tell what's going to happen is to make all of the individual simulated agents in it, the people, so complicated that they are essentially real people that then actually have rights at that point, because they do actually exist as sentient beings in that simulation. So once you've simulated a person to such an extent, it then becomes illegal to cease the simulation. So because otherwise you're killing all of those people.
That robot bus driver will be exactly the same, except they're just going to get paid less and be more grumpy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so...
But yeah, so read Ian Banks is really
good. Yeah, okay.
It actually, that reminds me of, sorry if this is a bit of a tangent, it reminds me of an argument I heard quite recently as to proof that we're in a matrix-type reality, which is that if we develop sophisticated simulations of reality, we're going to have more than one. So statistically speaking, if you pick any reality, you're likely to pick a virtual one. So if you pick the reality that we are currently in and say, well, which one are we? If we're infinitely statistically more likely to be in one of these virtual simulated realities than a real reality. I just wondered what people thought of that idea. Is it just a parlor trick, or is there some substance to it?
Hang on a sec, I've got to twist around this way, otherwise I'm going to be tangled in my real reality. If it was virtual reality, it wouldn't be a problem, obviously, but...
I think it's... I think that we like discovering and like being right. We like playing tricks with ourselves. And when we know something is not real, it doesn't matter. When you'll let yourself go with it. But even if you do experiment with drugs in any way and stuff, you're aware of something that's going to start and stop, beginning, middle, and end on it and stuff. So I think that I don't think that we would give up freely or happily to lose ourselves in a virtual world. And I'm an artist of sort of creative, and see that there is still a long way away from any sort of virtual built world, AI built world that could sniff at what it means to do something in a creative, sort of phrased way. So I can imagine a world where law is spat out by computers and robots, virtual worlds, something you could kind of get into, but it would still got such a jump to get there.
What do you think the things that the technology will never get?
You don't. There's lots of psychology, but it's the things about how the way the thoughts just run through your brain when you're walking down the street. There's how you can't program for that, and so. That randomness that's baked into our DNA. It's not in that. So, virtual world, AI world.
So says Lex. Randomness. It's all baked into our DNA. It's so real.
I would say that it's not. We are biological machines, and that choice is an illusion. And they've shown more and more studies show that we don't actually have any choice whatsoever. And so actually.
But Lex is talking about choice. He's talking about a randomness, that things just pop into our heads. Maybe we didn't choose what they were.
But it seems random, but it's not. It's all just there's a reason why it happened. There is no such thing as random.
I guess you're using that system to build a system that can replicate that system. And if you're ever aware of that, you're always aware of it. And that's to my end is a hurdle that's got a long way to get jumped.
We're getting very philosophical. We don't have to go that way, but it seems like we're going this way.
Think about virtual worlds and being able to swap and sit in them and be with them. Part of that is the meaning bits making that you're doing, whether it's image, stimulus, whatever it is. It's got to stay there.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, as a creator of worlds, you have to have a meaning for for creating it.
But is it random that you put on a robot-style T-shirt, or is it because you were doing a sci-fi? So there's lots of things that are shaping us where we go. Yeah, so like what we pick each day or what we're thinking. So I think sometimes, Nicholas Rogue said there's not such a thing as coincidence. In regards to that, it's kind of that's somehow like kind of what you're saying. It just kind of happens.
Okay, I mean, where do you stand on this reality against reality thing?
Reality.
Well, I mean, this whole idea that are we living in a simulation anyway? Does it make any difference to you?
I don't know. I think the more and more we start, for myself, I've only just doing this VR for a couple of years, and the more and more you can't start hanging around with different people with different belief systems on this, and the more you are in these other spaces that you're creating, and then if you're doing the cyberdelics and the other things that go with it, I think it could potentially be a simulation.
Well,
I think we're just so much at the beginning of VR. And it was interesting when I was speaking to one of our collaborators on the Veil project, a guy called Ian Nichols, who's a visual artist and really good at me talking about it. And we're just thinking, well, we're just experimenting. We don't know what we're doing with this field, and and we were kind of like thinking, it's just kind of like early cinema, or we even even referenced it in one of the things we had, Lumiere Brothers movie playing in virtual reality. When people saw the picture of the train and they all jumped out, and we did it, and we had the train come through the cinema screen in virtual reality. It was kind of like a cheap thing, and when Ian and I worked on it, it was just like we're just thinking, we just don't know. We're like everyone's playing a guessing game here.
I mean,
everyone's
in a way, going back to the famous incident of the train, one of the first ever cinema images, and they showed this train coming to, and everyone ran out of the cinema, and we kind of are slightly, I think, contemporary audience is slightly kind of like smug about that. It's like, how naive. Are we going to be looked on, this conversation, should it be watched by someone in 100 years' time, are they going to just be laughing their heads off at the naivety?
They were in a simulation the whole time. What idiots.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what Lex's brain as an extra app.
What is there going to be their sort of attitude to how we're dealing with the issues of the problems?
So there's this funny thing that humans tend to do, which is to associate what they think is happening right now with the most advanced technology that they have at the time. So people in the 1700s used to think that the world and the universe worked with cogs and machines, and people in the Stone Age used to think that the world was created with a hammer by a god that had a big fucking hammer. This is kind of like...
Because that was like cutting edge technology.
Yeah, like hammer did shit. Obviously you made it with a hammer, because I do make things with a hammer, so that's how we make things. And so we're doing the same thing with virtual reality and computers right now, like Turing machines. Turing machines are ridiculously simple. They're just they just do one process. They're just one process at a time, but just lots of them. And I think in maybe 20 years' time we'll be going that was pretty stupid. Now we've got quantum computers and neural networks, and we have very good understanding of this stuff, and it'll be in our everyday lives, and we'll be like, oh well, maybe the world is actually created with a neural network. AI.
It'll be a bit like getting really amazed and fascinated with reel-to-reel tape decks or something like that, and the fact they can actually record people's voice or something like that. But so, are you kind of agreeing with the conjecture that we'll be laughing at this conversation in
Yeah,
in the future.
I think technology is going to move on, and it's going to be in things that are very difficult to predict. You can see a little bit if you work with it, and you can sort of see a little bit of what's coming. And you can see these little bits, what's going on with CRISPR and like genetic modification and bits of what like machine learning, and you get like the kind of words what people talk about, and if especially you spend some time in it, you kind of your mind scales. You can kind of go like, fuck, and it's going to get pretty weird and pretty cool. So you get little glimpses of it, but I think our viewpoints of what's going on now will be, very much laughable.
What about teleportation? Because I know you said that Star Trek has already happened, but I mean, does anyone know, does teleportation exist, or has it happened already?
Will there be teleportation?
Or will there be?
I think that's I know that's I won't be here for any of that. That's a mind bender to figure that out. As inanimate stuff, maybe, but flesh.
But if we are all simulations, then teleportation will be a lot easier, wouldn't it? Because it's just about a download to somewhere else in the simulation.
Yeah, I suppose if you're not in the physical space, it's only in the physical space that you need to move someone. That's what it is. It wouldn't matter.
In virtual spaces, you teleport all the time. We've got teleportation in here, so. I mean, it might be useful to physically teleport, but maybe we don't need to in the future.
So we'll just informationally teleport.
Well, they're doing a new experiment where they're trying to not teleport, but travel at the speed of light. And they want to get to the next galaxy. And it's actually this project that just came out, and so basically they're sending this little sensor, which is about the size of a stamp.
Yeah.
And to get it going to the speed of light, they're getting like a lot of laser power, like lasers from all around the world, concentrating it on one little spot, and then blowing this stamp like really fast out of space and going. And they think they can get it to about quarter speed of light speed.
Stamp, it must be. Let's go that sort of speed.
But like getting it at like a quarter of light speed, so it'll get there in about like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I just think like, in terms of like we're trying to get there as fast as possible, like
I mean, what's going to happen
good.
when the stamp gets there?
It's going to send. No, then it's going to use its sensors to pick up data in that galaxy and send it back in the next 10 years, as fast as radio waves can go.
Okay, so we're sending stamps out into other solar systems.
Stamp-sized sensors.
Okay, yeah.
If we did put one of our cells on there, so if we did have the our genetic code on there, or someone's genetic code, and the imprint of their neuronal structure as well, and then you had a machine which recreated yourself over there, it would be, in all essence, just like falling asleep and waking up, because your consciousness is broken every time you go into REM, so essentially you're kind of teleporting every time you go to sleep. And so the thing is that's exactly what I'm saying, I mean, that consciousness is like a constant stream. As soon as you break that stream, then you've just died in all essence of it. But then the next person wakes up and thinks you're just still alive.
If you could sort of like effectively recreate yourself exactly in a different place, it's the same as teleportation in a way, and you could therefore go to a distant galaxy.
The thing I worry about is that continuation of consciousness, which I know arguably is broken every night, but there's still the illusion of it being a continuum. When you wake up, I still have the memories from what I did last night and so on, or most of them. And I worry that this kind of idea, there wouldn't be that continuation of consciousness. Not for me here on Earth. Obviously that lucky fucker on the other planet would, but then he's not me. I'm not that empathetic that I want someone else to have my experience. I want that myself. And so I think actual teleportation would be incredible, but then it raises this issue of, is there continuity? Do you die at the source? Like, what happens? But just a little correction, it's not the next galaxy, it's just Alpha Centauri, which is our nearest star. It's about 4 light years away, and they reckon they can get there in 10 years.
I'm glad you wrapped that one, because I was worried about that myself. But thanks for doing that. We've got a new face to the table. Maybe we should have a quick round of names. So we've got Rowan, Eping, Alan, Sander, Tom, what's your name?
Carl.
And?
James.
Yeah, I know.
Said.
And Lex, and what's your name?
Steve.
Is that everyone? Have you got anything to say, person over there, about this? I was too busy concentrating. Is he even a real person? Or just a robot? Sort of robot that would just shut the bus doors without even caring. Anyway, sorry, we're talking about you, not. Anyway, so where do we want to go with this conversation? We want to talk about these kind of future technologies. What does it really mean to be us here?
What about so we're talking about space travel.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about going to Mars and colonizing it and being the first species to really leave the planet? I'd like to see what people think about it.
Well, I'm going to turn it back to you. What do you think about it?
Oh, I think it's a great step.
Yeah.
I remember reading, so Elon Musk is like kind of the big figurehead there behind SpaceX. They want to go to Mars. There's Mars One's project, a bunch of like PR stuff too that's not really real. I think I would never go to Mars as like the first person to be like the pioneers. It would kind of suck, you know?
Yeah.
I think we've all seen The Martian, and it's just like, okay, great, potatoes all day. Yeah. But would anybody here want to go to Mars?
Okay. Well, you would.
As long as there's a Starbucks there. No, that's a joke.
Okay. Any coffee shop, doesn't have to be Starbucks. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I'd happily go there completely by myself if it had to be.
Really?
Yeah, exactly like The Martian.
Would you grow potatoes out of your own poo-poo?
I mean, yeah, I guess. I don't really eat many potatoes, but if that's the only thing they can grow.
If you couldn't ever go back to Earth?
That's fine. We only get to live 70 years anyway. I'm happy to live almost 35. I'll happily have the other 35 up in there.
Okay. And would you not get like bored or lonely up there?
Well, not massively, because we've got virtual reality environments that can bring me back home and interact with my friends and family.
Okay.
Bringing us full circle.
Yeah.
Just want to say, are you trying to say that being 7 million miles away from your family is a good thing?
It can be.
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, we've got a volunteer here for the Mars mission. Anyone else? Is it just Rowan?
Yeah, I would love to go actually.
Yeah.
And like ultimately, I believe in the creativity of human being.
Yeah.
I believe like no matter how harsh the circumstances can be or how different the physical environment can be, you can always design a new kind of beautiful environment.
Yeah.
We can design a new lifestyle, and we can create a new sort of system or society based on the different circumstances.
Right.
And that would be like super exciting.
Okay.
I think that's probably the most interesting thing about a colonization of Mars. If there was enough international people, and probably they would be at the tops of their fields of.
Yeah.
So you'd have a bunch of really advanced people. If it could be denationalized, and if it became a kind of, it's our best chance at like a kind of a restructured utopian society to start again, because changing the world here is just never going to happen. But if the people who go over there set it up right to start with and don't let it become as sick as this is, then it could be like humanity's new start.
It's a big problem, though. That like there's no natural resources to build on Mars. So you just have dirt and like there's some water, but like you can't build new buildings. Like the metal's not there, the oxygen's not there. So like I don't know if it could really be a utopia, because it'll never look like what we have here, which could be a good thing. But just how is it like? The reality behind it. I don't know if it's going to work.
It's a different set of challenges, but I mean, there are, of course, materials on Mars that could be used to create structures. You can get oxygen and water out of the ice in the ground, of which there's loads. There's plenty of stuff there that could keep us alive. We could terraform to some extent.
This reminds me of a conversation that I was having on the Talkaoke table about exactly a year ago at the Imperial Festival, which is next weekend in Imperial College. Do come if you want to, free Talkaoke. The kids there was a whole bunch of kids around the table and they were talking about space travel, and then some smart ass said, would there be money on Mars? Would you, if you started a new society up there, would you need money? And then that went on for, you might have gone home at that point, Rick, but it just went on for ages. Like, a lot of the kids were like, yeah, of course there'll be money. And then some of the other kids were like, no, they won't. What do you need money for? So I just want to, it's not really Talkaoke, because it's not really my role to throw those things in. But then again, I didn't come up with it first time round.
Is it a question of scale? I mean, okay, when you've got a small society, you probably don't need money because you can all pool and share. But once you get to a certain scale, you need some way of being able to transfer. You need some token that you can transfer
So you think
commodities or stuff. I think you'd inevitably get something that looks like money. It might be controlled in a different way, but just for convenience, I guess.
So there would be
maybe I'm being short-sighted. I'm sure Tom's got.
Well, I was going to say something about Mars and the terraforming of it, actually. But I guess on the form of money, I guess you need like a scarce sort of thing. There's not much on Mars because it's like a giant cat litter tray. You've just got mud.
So potatoes could act as money.
Yeah, I guess maybe. Yeah, that could be one way. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to move to Mars mainly partly because of this reason, because it would be just like living on the Isle of Wight, but with even less stuff. And it's just going to be like just mud, like waiting for things to 3D print out of Mars mud is going to suck, and you want to use a wrench, it's like, oh, it's made out of Mars mud again, it's just going to break. And I think, because that's where you can have to 3D print stuff and you get things up there. And it's never going to be terraformed until we can work out how to give it a stronger magnetosphere, because the reason why it doesn't have an atmosphere is because it's too small, it doesn't have enough iron in the core, and so the sun ripped off the atmosphere, and it just cannot be terraformed until we work out how to give it a stronger magnetosphere. Otherwise it would have an atmosphere, but Venus has an atmosphere. It used to have an atmosphere, yeah. But Venus has an atmosphere now. It has way richer minerals, and we're going to have to work out how to stop something being Venusified, because we're doing it to our planet now. And so once we work out how to stop that, we'll probably be able to do it on a larger scale with Venus sooner than we will be able to pump loads of iron into the centre of Mars's core. So I reckon we're going to terraform Venus sooner than
Venus is a better candidate than Mars.
Yeah, but it's still Mars. I mean, you would have some people living on Mars, but it would be like sort of. It would be
a bit like the Isle of Wight, basically.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't suppose we've got any Marxisms in the house here, but Karl Marx once said some time ago that there's enough resources, enough production facilities to provide a... Right now, we can have utopia. Unfortunately, Karl Marx was very much against capitalist society, which we are using because it holds back what we can have as utopia now. If we did go to Mars and colonize Mars from a Marxism point of view, forget about capitalism, forget about money, forget about personal belongings, but pull in with each other to create a community. Yeah, it can be a utopia on Mars.
Okay, so you think the main thing is the structure, and if it was like Marx on Mars, it would actually work.
Get rid of capitalism and form a feudalism state. We can have... sorry. Get rid of... it will be a... sorry, I'm getting the new states wrong here, sorry. But we can... in an ideal situation, Star Trek actually took it up. It's a whole point of Star Trek's...
yeah, we were actually talking about that a bit earlier on when you were going around the solar system. That Star Trek is a kind of post-scarcity society, possibly based along Marxist principles, maybe not.
Ostensibly, I kind of agree, but what I think is that to colonize Mars, we would probably need the kind of technologies we're talking about when we talk about post-scarcity. And so I think it's actually a bit of a moot point whether or not there's going to be capitalism on Mars, because I think to get Mars colonized, you need to have built technologies that can sustain us without money. So I almost see it as a non-issue.
The money thing would be gone anyway.
Yeah, I think it might just be an odd concept. Maybe it would be there for some peripheral activities, like something more
like playing poker or something.
Well, exactly. Yeah, it might be money might be a recreational tool, a thing to like in the same way that you've got virtual currencies in games. I think it almost might be relegated to that. Whereas your food, shelter, water, all of that stuff, why you wouldn't need to pay for that because the technology would be built into the environment that we're creating.
Okay, yeah, thanks. And let's bring...
I was going to say, like, the sort of the use of money, what you use it for. The world of sort of VR and stuff, to me, it's interesting storytelling, art, and all the emotional stuff. And that's what some of the struggles of the industry is, how to put a value on that exchange. Your needs, your basic needs, your food, shelter, stuff, that's stuff that I could see much more built into a system that it's kind of generated. But it's the more unquantifiable stuff in an emotional sense that is harder to figure out.
So could there be some kind of emotional currency?
Well, I think I like it because I think it puts it on you to decide what's important to you and what you value, and that's well, in all of this, I guess that's what we're trying to do. You know, I like mashed potato, but I need it more than I like it. You know, when it comes to feeding myself up. So, I don't know. In terms of society, I don't think money system. I don't know. I like.
You're right on Mars because apparently there's only potatoes up there. So maybe you should think about going up there. Okay, so like some kind of like, in a way, system of value that's based on desire or wanting stuff and liking stuff rather than needing stuff.
I think we always try to find systems that I had the right system. The problem is we fill the systems with people, and we're all deeply screwed. Individuals. Right. I think if we want to have a utopia, if we want to have a perfect system, we have to remove humans first of all. Yeah. And including, if I put myself there, I have jealousies. I have all sorts of these emotions that come along. Greed. Yeah. So take me out of the equation, and then you can build a perfect system. But I don't think any of us will be in it.
Okay, none of us would make the grade, basically. Yeah.
I was going to say they said something similar in old Harry's radio series called Old Harry's Game, which is based on Andy Hamilton playing the role as the devil. Yeah. And he goes through all sorts of characters, and he said, I know to bring Karl Marx back into it, but he basically went to Karl Marx and said, fancy Bill thinking of a system that doesn't take into consistencies human greed and human nature. Once humans are gone off the planet, then you can have your perfect system.
Okay, so did Karl Marx convene with the devil? Some of the questions here. Where do we want to take this conversation? In a way, I think it's getting to an interesting place. How do we communicate these kind of values, these intangibles, but they're so important to us? Do we actually acknowledge the dark side of human existence, the greed, the jealousy, the lust, all of these, what in the Catholic world would be this kind of sinful feelings? How do we actually encompass those into our realities?
I guess it's about scarcity and what people want in that sense, and what they identify with, and what they are, whether they identify with a sort of a nationalistic identity, or whether they identify with like a group or a tribe or like a type of people, whatever, like wherever they identify with, And everyone has like a different extension. Maybe they just want to get it with their family. They want to get money for the family. Or maybe they want to get send money back home. Maybe they want to do anything, and it's because of scarcity. The reason why they would do that is because they have a limited resource to get whatever they want to get. And so once you eradicate scarcity of what people for their intrinsic desires and what they want, then you can eradicate money.
But evolution has all been built around scarcity, so we are built to survive, and we are the survivors of having survived loss of scarcity. And I just don't know if we are adapted through those millions of years of evolution to adapt to a place where there is no scarcity.
So basically what happens is an experiment that happens when someone puts you up in a hotel and you go to the buffet and you can just have as much breakfast as you want. That's effectively a post-scarcity society, and it's just unlimited. It's like anyway, what were you going to say?
So on that scarcity, so one of the most effective forms of marketing is fear-based marketing. It's marketing that you're going to lose your house, you're going to lose your apartment, you're going to lose your health, you're going to die, you're going to get cancer or something, you're going to lose your family, you're going to lose your friends, and so that we really hate losing stuff. And so to get to the point where we don't fear that, because that's what kind of holds us back, I think to get rid of that, you need to almost be like immortal and like be flawless, which I don't know if will ever happen unless we all get plugged into a computer and then have a perfect simulation. But where we are right now, fear-based marketing, it's really shitty, but it'll always work because people hate. We're more inclined to not lose something than win.
Can you give us an example of fear-based marketing, just to make it a bit more real and understandable? Like what sort of?
Just on that point, I think as people, I come from a marketing background, I totally understand that. I think what's nice as people understand that, and it just pings people being aware of that, they'll go, screw that. They're already doing it. People under 25 try and make them watch an ad. It's hard. They're aware that they're being sold to. They're aware. They kind of want a truth or look. I want to find my own bit. But I agree that it's still going on. It's still effective, but it can be broken and it can be knocked down, and you can see it happening as well.
Okay, so a good example right now that's really big in the media is the U.S. elections, and so a lot of Trump tactics are really fear-based marketing. So we're losing our country to immigration. We have rapists and murderers coming through the border, through Mexico, coming in. We're losing our jobs. We're losing our superpower status. All that is based on loss instead of gain. And that really triggers people. Obviously, there's a lot of other reasons for his success, but I think that's a really good example of just influencing someone like that.
We've got to see what happens. Because
will people subscribe to the fear? You're saying that mostly they do, Steve.
Just wanted to say one of the best known examples of fear-based marketing. We're at war. Buy war bonds. World War II.
Okay.
I guess it's not just about a different circumstance or different planet. I guess as human beings, we're just never happy. Like even if we just stay perfectly on Earth, we constantly complain about everything.
Right.
For example, when I was traveling in a Muslim country, I met a man who has 3 wives. Right. So I asked him, you have 3 wives, you must have like a dream life. So ideally, if you can have as many wives as you, ideally, how many wives would you like to be? And he was like 0, to be honest. So I guess that's the thing. Yes. So no matter where you are, like there are always things like you're not happy with. You constantly complain about everything. Like even you're on Earth, you complain. There's no nature around me. There's too many traffic, and so it's all about how to change your own attitude, I guess, to appreciate. I don't know. That's mine.
So you have to change your own approach.
But aren't people always not happy because of capitalism, really? Because it just makes you always feel like you're inadequate and you're not enough. And I think when people are, I think that's my issue with virtual realities, because I think that when people aren't around nature, when people are in touch with nature, they tend to be more happy and feel happier. But then on the other hand, people...
So you think it's too alienating from
I think it is. I think
we talked about evolutional existence.
No matter what, I know what you were saying about Mark Zuckerberg wanting that Facebook thing and virtual reality really to increase and grow, but people always want to come back to having situations like this where they can actually see people and touch people. People always know, because even now, people always talk about the lack of community, people being isolated online and stuff like that. So people always come back to coming together and seeing people in real life.
I think it is capitalism, basically. It's,
pretty much.
And it's alienating us.
Well, not virtual reality. I don't think virtual reality is capitalism, but just the point that you were saying about people never feeling happy.
Capitalism. I think it's what Tom was saying is just human nature. It doesn't matter if you're in a Marxist society, a capitalist society. Greed's always going to be there. People are always going to try to take advantage of it. So you can't run away from it, Ellen.
But I suppose there's that, the bit of like that crossover of saying I prefer my virtual reality world than my reality world. Now we're saying that the world's getting shittier, so that's going to jump that way, and maybe so. But I couldn't stand and say, with my consciousness, that I prefer my virtual reality world than my real world, even if my real world's shitty. There's something about it being just what it is.
So real.
That I make mean something to me.
And where do you stand on the capitalism happiness thing? Do you think it is capitalism, or do you think it's?
I think it is. I think it is human nature, but I believe, and I'm optimistic that there are ways to push that, redirect it. And I mean, the deciding not to see that is awful and painful, even though it's apparent quite many people do see it that way. I'm like, no, there are ways this thing can get better or
you have to have a way forward, a way to get better.
To have a reason that there's something to point
Your virtual reality comment is really interesting because it's like, I think we actually see that a lot with video game addictions because people spend, and I was like super addicted to this MMO called RuneScape for like 2 years, and I just like spent every day I could like playing this game. And it's because it was way more fulfilling for me than actual real life because I was 16 and I didn't have much going on. Yeah. But in the game, I was like max level. I was the shit. I was super rich, you know. So it's in that sense, it's way more fulfilling, and it's fulfilling my needs because I was also deeply unhappy that it was only in this faux circumstance that had no weight in the real world. Yeah. Not in the. I think that's also the real world, but in with my friends and family.
And you understand it.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to this question of value, but instead of like monetary value, it's kind of a self-value is what you're talking about, I suppose, that you can value yourself in this virtual world.
You have to put into it as well, you know, that the fact that you're able to look at it, it's such a beautiful kind of simple, a screen over there to a screen there, and suddenly you can look around, you know, it's kind of visceral. It is as near to being standing in a row and looking at what you want, but to me there's so much further to kind of go with it.
Okay. Oh, yep. Sorry. You haven't said anything.
So we seem to be going around this point a lot where, like, is it capitalism, is it human nature, which is what drives us to unhappiness in these days? And I generally think that, to be honest, we didn't evolve to be what we are now. Technology and society has accelerated at a rate far beyond what our biology and psychology has the capability to go for. And we live these such artificial lives, going to a desk every day. It's not like we sort of like wake up, look around our nature, find beauty in our surroundings. We're completely divorced from the animals that we grew to be. And you can see that in like drunk people going out, getting in fights. We've got this need to dominate.
More authentic human spirit.
I think it's more human, and we're being kind of we're having our humanity sort of piecemeal kind of drained and taken away from us as we become less and less the spirit animals that we are in the first place. And in a way, maybe virtual reality can be an interesting way to bring this back, and perhaps in quite terrifying ways. I mean, in 10 years, you'll be able to rape and murder your neighbour in virtual reality. Right. And what does that mean for reconnecting with our animal drives? And maybe this could be a way to sort of cathartically exercise our animal. I mean, it will be like you won't even be able to tell the difference between reality and virtual reality in this time.
To me, that's like ultra scary.
I mean, it's kind of terrifying, but maybe it could. It
could actually make people happier and more.
I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that everyone should be raping and murdering in virtual reality, although I think that will happen. But just more like if there's a way that we can kind of recreate the life processes that we used to go in when we were these kind of like free, untethered animals, and if we can kind of reconnect with ourselves in that way, given that we can't do that anymore in our current society and world.
I wonder if it's not some of these animal drives that we need to overcome to actually develop as a species. When we talk about colonization of Mars and all of this sort of post-scarcity societies, is it not our kind of the bad sides of human nature? And I know that it's kind of inseparable, good and bad, and you can't really say that this behaviour is good and that behaviour is bad, but isn't it some of that stuff that's actually holding us back? And I feel capitalism is maybe a symptom of that.
But the question is, what do we do if we accept those drives exist? How do we deal with those drives? And I think what Xander's saying is that we actually, if we allow people to express this dark side in a virtual space, that actually
Also sort of raises this question of moralist, how we might police our society, and moralistically where we might go. You know, if virtuality is kind of indistinguishable from reality, and people going around raping and murdering, is that a crime? Even though it didn't happen, I mean, who's the victim in anything? Do we need like police essentially?
Is it a crime? I mean, like if you rape somebody but they're not a real person, but you're still like mentally, it's going through that same process. Isn't that not a crime?
So virtual child pornography is illegal in a lot of countries, so there is no victim.
Yeah.
And a lot of research suggests that actually it reduces the rates of actual
paedophilia
things.
Yeah.
So it's like, there is already a morality. There is no victim, but we say, no, you can't do that.
Okay.
No,
but if you just use like an animated, if you make porn using animated models of children, sorry, just spelling it out.
But then I think that, like, no matter what, people always want the real thing. So people are going to go, and they are going to go and rape a child. They're going to see a child, and they're going to think, that child is not real. Let me just go and rape that child. I think that as well.
But I'm shooting people in computers all the time, and I'm not going out murdering people.
I think that. I feel that. God, I forgot what I was going to say now. Okay.
Well, we're talking. Let's just rewind back. We're talking about like this kind of like very dark animated world where you can like act out criminal instincts in a virtual space. Is it still criminal?
Yes,
really the question.
It's still criminal. I'll come back to that.
Yes, I went to the really good play last year called The Nether. You watch that one. It's really good. It's about the limitation of imagination and those moral issues in virtual reality. So it was like there's a guy who like he was really in love with a little girl, but in reality he can't possibly like have sex or do anything with a junior, and so he created this virtual reality. So anyone can play that girl in that virtual reality. So he can really date that girl, and so in the end, he realized it's actually a really old man who has been playing that girl. Yeah. and so there's a detective.
Did he then fall in love with the really old man?
Yeah, and that old man really felt, but still so in a virtual reality. It really worked. And, but. I guess, but the point of the play is that it doesn't work because it will influence you in reality. Like people who got so emotionally attached in that virtual world, they wouldn't be able to deal with their own reality anymore, and but.
Do you agree with that conjecture? Do you think that's that would be the case if...
I'm okay with that because everybody has a choice. As long as you're an adult, you always have a choice. You can stick to your virtual reality. You can choose to live your life in your or you can always choose to get rid of that virtual reality and live your real life. So as long as we're provided with a choice, it doesn't matter who you are living with or who you are dating. Yeah.
I mean, I worry that it's a resurgence of that argument that people like Susan Greenfield make all the time, which is that computer games make kids do bad things, which has been time and time again disproven. That if anything, there's a negative correlation to playing computer games and external violence, which is kind of touching on what you were saying. Like you play games where you shoot people, but you don't actually go around shooting people. But I know that it gets a bit more touchy when you're talking about sort of really horrendously violent crimes that haven't yet been depicted in computer games. Yeah. But I don't know, I just feel like people are ignoring evidence and going with their gut instincts, which is why the virtual crimes have kind of been banned in other countries. And just one sort of case in point was like me and some friends were kind of early adopters of modding the game Quake when it first came, before it came out, in fact. And we took digital photos of ourselves, put our faces on the characters, and went around shooting each other. We never shot each other in real life, even though we were actively making each other shoot each other in a virtual space. And that thought never even crossed our minds. It was just never a thing, because we knew it was.
Do you think if you look at if you go evidence-based, the evidence says
to a degree, I don't believe in just going by
virtual crime diminishes actual crime. Yeah.
I think it's funny that they're talking about the reality and that you're in a reality and then you're building another reality, and part of it obviously through the gaming world is to get it as real as possible. That's the sell, is to get you into a driving game or a sim that's as real as possible. So you are kind of playing with it. My bit, I'm a musician, I'm a drummer, and I play a digital drum kit, and to me all of those digital stimulus stem from an analog start point. So the guy who's making the VR piece to set up a guy to be a paedophile, and that's a really crazy thing to do. And I don't think it's unimportant. I think that you need to think about the two. You are building worlds. You know, someone who'd never thought about paedophilia in any way has an experience on a VR thing, and bang, there's something in that for them. Yeah. And, you know, there are things around it. I don't know. Yeah. Is it better to help someone? It's a good question.
Get through the dark side. Yeah. I mean, I don't know the answer to it as well. It's like the first time I've really thought about it, but I mean,
I'm interested to know what countries has it worked in, the virtual, you know, the fact that, you know, where virtual crime has been used and it's reduced the rate of real crime. Like, what countries is that
explain this evidence, because you were talking about the evidence.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the UK is a pretty good example. As adoption of computer games has gone up, violent crime has gone down. I know that's a correlation, not a causation, but to say that computer games would cause violence would contravene that evidence. It would suggest that violence should have increased with the increase of computer games. But, I mean, maybe it's just a universal thing that's happening everywhere, but you can't deny that computer games have not increased violent crime.
We did a Talkaoke in Lincoln, of all places, just at the end of last year. Where's Rick gone? He's disappeared. Just to kind of back me up and say that it's true. But there were so many people around the table all talking about Call of Duty and how which, if people don't know, is a very violent computer game, and how it gave them inner peace. We even made a little picture to illustrate that. But anyway, Rick's not here, so he can't back me up on that. I think, actually, speaking of inner peace, it's time to get some final thoughts, so I can then go and eat my apple, unless someone else wants to jump in the middle of the table. Nevertheless, I still think we should get some final thoughts. How would you sum up this discussion? I mean, it's gone to interesting places, and we're sort of like moved on to the dark side, which I think is quite interesting, yeah. Because we haven't really talked about the dark side until today. So, final thoughts? Anyone got any final thoughts?
I'm not sure what this conversation's been about, but it's been very interesting.
Yeah,
kind of started off with some arts thing, and then it's kind of gone into very philosophical grounds. Yeah, I don't really have much to say other than I think we're entering a big unknown, aren't we, in the future, and it's raising, you know, the emergence of these technologies, where we're going to question reality, we're going to question how its impact onto society is going to happen, moralistic values. You know, it's. I think we're going to have an interesting century ahead of us.
As the Chinese say, may you live in interesting times. Final thought, Xander?
It's been an interesting discussion. I prefer the philosophy, to be honest, than a lot of the other things. It's nice to hear everyone's opinions, and it's a good group of people around the table, so thanks for the chats.
Yeah, well, it will continue. Alan?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. It's been very eye-opening. I have enjoyed the dark side, and I hope we continue down that route as the afternoon progresses, yes.
Yeah, me too. I really enjoy the dark side. And, well, this is my first time to such an event, and it's pretty exciting. I really enjoy that. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, it's been fascinating. I urge people to be optimistic about technology, because I just think that if we're not optimistic, then people will grab it and use this kind of fear-based marketing against us.
Okay, so don't succumb to fear.
Yeah, and I'd totally second that. I believe in humans. I think they've got more good in them than bad in them. So if tech is a representation of human endeavour, there's good ways of it turning out, and I'm hopeful that there's more of that. Yeah, I've really enjoyed this chat.
Me too. I think a lot of us are just getting more aware of sort of marketing techniques being used on us, and so they're becoming less effective, and just sort of talking about sort of the dark side, the darker strategies that people use to sort of persuade us to view reality in a certain way when it's really not like that is really interesting. And then coming down, I think a lot of it's just our human influences that are like so deep down within us that they're always going to be there no matter what happens. So
I mean, can virtual reality in a way be a kind of training to view reality more critically?
I mean, absolutely. I think there'll be one and the same, though.
Yeah, okay. So that's it. So thanks to Rick on camera. And we'll be back shortly with another round of Talkaoke. Let's have a social media break. Everyone get on their phones.